So it was Alan earlier, and just now with Gary, we got a bunch of stuff added to our self-sovereign interface to GitHub issues for aid to governing labeled items. We had added, hello, Jim Scarborough, your labels to review, view open closed all, or select another. And we added the all choice to that, so you can now view all issues. And just now with Gary, we added the view issue by number, because there's no easy way to do that. And I mean, in the reward system, it's at least 3 clicks away, and I can never figure out how to find it. But just getting to an issue is getting to a specific issue easily is a good feature of this. And then you just cancel the tab, and you're back where you were. So it shows the description of the label next to the label. So we'll go to marketing. We'll get the description of marketing. Looks like we need a couple of more label guides for marketing, although Peter hasn't complained yet, not to my knowledge. So what we did was we added a form here for the issue, and then when we click on that, we get issue equals number and query string. We couldn't really make the URL to GitHub here in the template, so instead in the server.js, right, at the beginning of the page, we check to see if the query string issue is defined. And if it is, we do a 103, which is a redirect to this location of the issues, plus the value they entered for the issue we wanted to see, and then we enter the result. We could have done it as a separate page or whatever. We just added it right here for simplicity. Okay, for the all labels, we created another field which is label condition, so that we could replace the whole label condition in the query. And if the current label equals all, and this is another form of test in JavaScript, which, to avoid a lot of these parentheses and trying to line them up here, it's easier to use this syntax. So if the label is equal to all, then the label condition is removed. We have nothing, empty string. Otherwise, we have the labels colon followed by the value of the current label. And then in the query here, we put in the label condition, so that if they put all, there's no label condition.
So does GraphQL not support a way to view all labels within the query itself?
Well, the thing is, you know, if we put a, it's possible that there is a way to do it. you know, we would have to, it would have to support it explicitly, and I don't think it does. We would have to have a way of specifying all labels if we're going to put a labels condition in here.
Right, yeah, so this is the easier way to do it.
And was there one other thing we did? I think that's it. Did you ping Donald, Gary? You're on mute. You can just give.
I'm sorry. I thought you were going to do it. I will do it right now.
Oh, I got hung up on Kenny's message. I can't do two things at once. So one of the things we wanted to get to do is update some issues so we can use our interface actually and process some issues. Oops.
I pinged him.
Oh yeah, we reordered the column. We added all to the drop down.
Oh, you reordered the columns. I thought Donald did that.
No, actually, I did some of it, and Alan did some of it himself.
Oh, great.
But he doesn't want to be associated with noobs. Maybe we'll change the group.
Well, we ought to change the name of it if that bothers anybody.
Yeah.
The only issue with that is people will assume I know what I'm doing, which I don't.
Yeah.
One R in Gary.
No. Okay. Reorder columns, add all to drop down. And then we had add get issue by number. Okay, and Donald wants to go over some CSS tools if he shows up. I think the other thing we had on our schedule was to do the graph RQL. But let's go back to this and take this as it is now and advanced options, export to GitHub. Okay. And issue by number. Okay. And then we go to GitHub. And we go back to discover RChain tools. And I go to branches. And I have one. I make a new pull request. Create pull request. And merge all pull requests. Okay, confirm merge. Didn't I already print that? Okay, and now I go back to my code. I can see the various issues and stuff that I've committed, and it all looks kosher. So is there something, hey, Alan, welcome.
Hello, Alan.
Hi, guys. Hi, Gary.
So we added view issue by number here. So we have an easy way to get issues, which we sorely needed. By number.
That's awesome.
And,
Looks very, very nice.
yeah, and I don't know if Donald's going to join us. He was.
Hi, Audie.
Hello.
So I'm really excited that you actually reordered some columns.
Yeah, I think it looks really, really nice. Sorry, Jim. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I have a tendency to interrupt people, and I apologize in advance. And call me on it when I do.
Same here. Do it all the time. You didn't interrupt.
So yeah, I'm not. Jim, did you mention to everybody that we're thinking about doing this in the community debrief tomorrow because it's just so awesome?
Yeah. No, I didn't mention that yet.
Is it okay if I steal that thunder?
Yeah.
So,
Go for it.
you know, guys, a big thrust recently in the bounty system is to get some visibility into it. I think that the bounty system in the past has been kind of like all the other radically transparent things at RChain, where in one sense, all the information is there, but in another sense, it's not very accessible to many people. And this thing that you guys have done is just so awesome. It makes all this stuff accessible.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So,
So tomorrow, I'm hoping that Jim will be able to spend a minute or 2 minutes just describing and showing the screen that we were watching before. And he mentioned that he'd like to credit each of you, and I think that'll be awesome. All the developers on this little project.
yeah. Well, that was your suggestion that we, that we show that there's, people engaged in this. And
I would say more than engaged, doing great work. This is, yeah. I mean, I don't know how you guys view this, but I think it's wonderful to look at, and it supplies a lot of information that wasn't there.
It shows what you can do in a collaboration and cooperate,
Yeah.
It's collaboratively constructed. So,
okay, I'm going to hop out in a minute. So if there's any questions for me, please ask or contact me on Discord or anything you like.
Sure. Now, you talked about a walkthrough. I think I just walked through the choices quickly.
Okay, so what we're going to try to do is to keep this to 90 seconds. So if somebody's got a stopwatch, let's pretend we're in the community debrief, and we have this awesome new tool that Jim is going to describe.
Sure. I developed with the noob group with Gary and Audie and Donald. This really cool app for us label guides in the bounty system, and I connect to it, and it says, "Hello, Jim Scarver, your labels to review," and I can go click on operations, and it'll show me operations. It shows me the descriptions of the operation tags, so I see who the guides are. I could choose all if I wanted to see all the issues. I can create a new issue. I can participate in developing this interface. Log into the to the reward system in order to vote. Be able to
Jim,
vote.
that's really awesome. Would you like to introduce any of the people or mention some of the names of people that have worked with you on this?
Sure. Gary, Coulter, Audie, Audie, Donald,
yeah, his hard name is a little bit hard to pronounce. I think you better get in line on that. Yeah. And is this filed as an issue, or is it under the newbie program? What's the status of it?
Well, it's a little bit in limbo right now. There's 2 issues involved in it. I've asked people to comment on this issue, which is probably wrong. Find 3 guides, peers for each functional area of the bounty system. I think it is probably more appropriate I don't know if it's open or closed. Integrate. I think this one's more appropriate. 673.
I see.
And that's under development and operations. And he has a $300 budget proposed.
So what do you think is an appropriate budget for the work that you guys have done so far?
Well, let's see. I guess if we look at the hours put into it, I would say a good 10 hours. Maybe. What do you think, guys?
Well,
Probably agree.
Yeah, I don't know, Jim. I haven't contributed that much to this project, but a minimum of 10 hours seems reasonable. You know, you guys have done a lot more than I have, though. If I've done anything, you know, 1 or 2% maybe of the effort, if that.
Well, you've helped me a lot in terms of, you know, simple stuff, catching typos, getting ideas, helping, you know, you know, with the design. I mean, your time is valuable, and you know, you are a valuable contributor to the effort.
Okay, well, so when you say 10 hours, does that imply an average hourly rate or a recommended hourly rate? By the way, whatever is suggested for budget, that's subject to voting, so that's
Right.
not necessarily final.
Right. So if we and this is an interesting use case.
Well, the most exciting part of it to me is the GraphQL use and potential. You know, this to me, the GraphQL is a big part of where we're going with this whole integration and interoperability, and getting away from having to deal with these APIs individually and start thinking more in a unified way about how to communicate between different sources of data.
So my reaction to that is that's kind of like saying the focus of RChain is on Rolang or something like that, which is true as a general concept, and this is a very, very powerful set of tools. But right here, you've taken on a particular issue, namely getting better visibility into the bounty system, but getting better tools for voting. And I think you guys have done a nice self-contained job of something that's usable. Utility, you know, it's maybe not the be-all and end-all, and it will change in the future, but it's just pretty usable right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, we can, you know, take all this stuff right. Now you see some of this stuff is beyond this interface, which is the point that I was about to make. In that we also have this issue, GraphQL self-sovereign front end for RChain. So that's a bigger category that this fits under.
Okay, and go ahead.
I guess that's really the one that I'm talking about when I talk about the value of GraphQL and a front end. Yeah.
All right.
So you know, where we claim where we should claim is sort of up in the air. I'd like to create some activity in the GraphQL self-sovereign front end activity. Although we have sub-activities like this interface.
Yeah, I think it'd be nice to just talk about this as a sub-activity, and possibly you could consider the newbie group itself as being an ongoing contribution to RChain. I don't know, but for what I see in front of me, it looks like some work was done. It looks like the work is going to be very valuable to RChain, and I think somebody should just claim that as a reward for work well done, for job well done. And how you guys want to divide that up and so forth and so on, I think that's mostly your internal business. I know on some issues there's been voting about, you know, this guy appears to us to have done more and so forth and so on. But I think, like, if Jim is a guide or team lead or whatever you want to call it, Jim is probably a better point person on that, and we should probably more or less vote the issue as a whole. You know, if you say it took 10 hours and 1 hour is at the rate of, you know, whatever, then it should be 10 times whatever, and that's the suggested budget, and then people can vote on that and say, yeah, this is worth twice that, or this is worth exactly what you guys say it is, or slash.
Yeah, and you know, there's I think there's merit in the, you know, equivalence point of view that everybody's time is basically worth the same.
So I'm not sure that I agree with that, because in the real world, well, so on a theoretical basis, I think some people have invested a lot of time studying or gaining skills. You know, a person like Greg might say that in order for him to do something in a minute, he had to work 30 years to get to that minute. And I think that's realistic and shows up in a lot of other organizations. So I'm not sure that, but for the purposes of this, or for the purposes of your team, whatever you want, you guys can come up with whatever evaluation model makes sense to you.
Yeah, well, you know, time is the only resource that is finite. And when people give us their attention and their time, that's valuable to the co-op. And
okay,
education.
I certainly agree with that.
Education is is a big part of what the co-op is offering, can offer its members, and is part of the, you know, the principles of cooperative organizations.
I agree with that. And I think, for instance, voting, the activity of voting, the activity of making comments, the activity of attending meetings, all of these things are valuable contributions both ways, from members to the co-op and from co-op to members. In general, things that are less specialized, when I work on something that I feel that mostly anybody could do, or doesn't have a particular, is more of a commodity, I tend to go with a lower rate. For me, in the translation stuff, we went with I think $15 an hour, because that seemed like when we did the project, we were kind of amateurs doing it, so we didn't think that that's worth a real premium. But on the other hand, for some things, not only is there bringing experience and skill on an hourly basis, but there might be something like intellectual property or novelty or something like that. Like in this particular project, I'm not sure that I want to argue that very deeply right now, but one could make an argument that the use of GraphQL or whatever, as applied to problems that RChain has, is a new and important approach.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, it's of great value. I mean, GraphQL people are the most highly in-demand people in the industry right now. So learning GraphQL would be valuable to everyone, which is on the other side, really. I mean, they should want to learn it for free. But, you know, when I've, you know, been working in other organizations for different corporations, institutions, they paid for my education when I worked there. Okay, I got paid for that, in terms of my time.
Yeah, and when people work for an organization and they do something that turns out to be useless or waste time or whatever, they get paid as well. So there's not anything wrong with the principle of that. At the same time, I think that we're all trying to figure out more generally how to share resources, how to share time, how to share computing, how to share this nebulous thing called commitment. We don't really have a culture or norms around that yet, but over some period of time, like 6 months or a year, I'm hoping that we'll build some kind of culture like that.
The view that we had in the scenario days was that research shows that up to a certain amount, money makes happiness, or money contributes to happiness.
Well, it certainly contributes to being able to pay the rent for people.
Okay, well,
I think paying the rent is kind of important to, if we want people to be committed to RChain.
Now, basically, what the studies were indicating was that at that time, which was daily at this time, that about $35 an hour was as much as you needed to be happy.
Okay.
And so we set that rate for amps, which was our own money anyway.
Yeah.
We want our people to be happy as the basic rate. And of course, people that are especially talented can charge more than that. But the base rate we selected was about $35 an hour. And I think that we should be generous in the sense that we're rewarding people sufficiently for them to live a good life. I mean, we're not.
Does anybody have
the old values don't apply to us. We're making our own values.
Well, I think that they do in a number of ways. So one way that they apply is that we're trying to be pretty global in reach, and a number like $35 an hour is probably appropriate in San Francisco as a base rate or in certain areas. But if you look around the world, I would say that $35 an hour is probably quite a bit in some areas. So, for instance, in the state of Washington, where I live, there's a minimum wage, which is $15 an hour. And Washington is relatively high. I think in the United States, there's a minimum wage of something like $10 an hour, or, on that order. And I think that furthermore, I know that a lot of people that I meet at RChain in the Bounty program are kind of, there's a wide variation. Like, a lot of people do things for free, and some people give the impression of overcharging. And in order for us to have a real collaborative economy, I think it's my opinion that we should probably start small as we're kind of experimenting with the system and establishing the kind of value that Jim, you were saying would occur in a system where everybody's treated fairly and enough to be happy and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, okay, let's get to it. We can decide what we want to do, and that's okay. If we look
Okay,
at,
and by the way, in a specialized field like programming, I mean, so I've mentioned that prevailing rates change by geography. They also change by skill domain. So programming is also intrinsically valued in many places at higher rates than, say, commenting in a vote or something like that.
yeah. Oh, okay, so for GraphQL self-sovereign identity front end for RChain, we have one reward for Adi for April. Okay, in our budget, we have April budget. We don't have a May budget.
Okay.
So we should all go to budget votes, and we can see that these are all budget votes for April, not for May.
Okay.
So we want to do a new budget vote, but apparently I'm not logged in. But I just logged in. Log in. Okay. I'm logged in. And votes. Budget votes. New budget vote. Amount. For this month. With 1,000. Okay, and for reward votes.
Okay, so before you vote, is there a discussion that we're going to have, or are you just voting?
I'm at this point. I was just going to vote, but I guess the discussion here was
because I think that's what happened in one of these discussions that recently took place in the Bounty Discord channel, where some people thought, I don't know, here's a number, let's vote it. There wasn't much discussion around it, and I think that there was a little bit of resentment, maybe, or, I mean, everybody's got their own way of looking at stuff. We're trying to establish like norms or whatever that will work for the group to be cohesive. I mean that's my goal is having things that seem equitable enough that everybody, it's obvious to everybody to agree on them. So let me see this. Which issue are you voting within right now?
609.
609. So when I look at 609, well, when my computer comes up with 609, here it is. Okay, so I see graph QL self-sovereign front end for RChain. And okay, I like the description. We need front ends for RChain applications. Looks nice.
So, you know,
So
about how many hours, Audie, do you want to, do you think you devoted to this project, to this
say in May.
in May?
In May, what's the date?
So it's like 3 hours a week, right?
Yeah, pretty much 3 hours a week is what I would work with.
And it's
I
actually
wasn't
3 hours.
And Audie, you're a student, is that correct?
Yeah, in this domain I am.
Oh, okay. I guess I don't know you very well. Maybe we should introduce. I'm going to turn on my video soon, and
All right.
I like to see people's faces sometimes, because sometimes there's body language and stuff that.
Yeah. Let me just see if I can get this guy working. Ah, here we go.
So you have this nice British accent.
I'm from New Zealand, so let me move this.
Are you in New Zealand now?
Yeah, in New Zealand.
Do you know David Curran?
Why is the name familiar?
He's one of the directors of RChain, and he lives in New Zealand.
What does he do outside of RChain?
He's from DAP Hub, who did a lot of the development for MakerDAO. I don't know if you're familiar with MakerDAO.
I've heard of it, but don't know too much. I don't know.
And he's an interesting guy. He's pretty much self-educated.
Right.
And he's a surfer.
Ah, okay. Ah, yeah, that's probably where I've heard his name then. Well, one of my work colleagues is into surfing, so that's probably where. New Zealand's very small, so you have what's known in England. You have the 6 degrees of separation, where you can connect the whole country with 6 links. New Zealand, you can do that with 2. So I know someone who knows, who will then know someone, and you can link the whole country by that. It's crazy.
You probably know the Harry Potter cast by 2.5 degrees.
If only.
So if you're a relative beginner in this field, and Gary, I don't think you're a total beginner, but you have some idea of economics and so on. I'm going to leave Jim out of this conversation out of the straw poll for a second. But what amount would you be participating in this project for if you were, So, and let me say one more thing about the difference between a beginner and an expert. A lot of the difference is the number of hours required to do something. So an expert would probably do something in 1 hour that a beginner might do in 20 or 100 hours. So for instance, in the translation project that I was involved with, at the end we looked at what we did, and it wasn't very much. And the reason was because we didn't know what we were doing, which is okay. And we voted ourselves this $15 an hour, which, I thought was maybe a little bit on the high side. But on the other hand, we did something that had never been done within RChain. So I was happy with that.
I think you underpaid yourself,
Yeah, I'd say $15 an hour is a bare minimum for anything we do related to RChain, including learning about RChain in these sessions. And I on this particular project, I'd have to say, I've already gotten more out of it than I put into it. I learned so much from watching Jim that that it's incredible.
So I've heard a lot of people say that sort of thing a lot of times, and my response is always, well, if $15 an hour is what it takes to put a roof over your head, or it's a minimum kind of norm within RChain, then I think we should at least stick to some kind of minimum like that.
Yeah. So coming back to it, what was your original question?
Well, so if we're going to, so I'm a big fan of what the people at Reflective Venture Partners and so on, they call them valuation models, because they have some hucksters with a project that are trying to say, well, our project, is the best thing since sliced bread. And they say, okay, how much do you want for it? And they say, wait, we're not even going to give you a number. We're going to tell you what the valuation model is. And the valuation, a simple valuation model is we work by the hour and we spent this many hours.
Right, yeah.
More complicated ones are, what it would go for in a competitive bid, or, what a patent is worth, or, you can get to arbitrary levels of complexity. And I'm sure that the people at Reflective Ventures do go into quite complex discussions. But like here, if we're saying it's kind of a newbie project, Jim is the leader. Jim's already paid under a different program, or part of his reward comes through a different program. So just speaking through here, you guys are kind of the workers. So, I would just list out, the number of hours you think that you worked, and if you think that that there should be a cooperative-wide norm of like a minimum amount, and you multiply that by the number of hours, that's what I did in the translation project, and it's something that I feel good about. It wasn't like Jim says, it wasn't a lot of money, and I might have done something else to do better, but that's okay, because I worked, with Jim and with other people in a project that I think is important, and I'd like to see grow.
Yeah. I'd probably agree with a minimum of $15 an hour type thing. Simply because on the one hand, you do kind of need, you can't see my hands, but sort of you're right enough to pay rent. But on the flip side as well is I am very much a beginner. And personally, I don't think my experience level warrants more than that at this stage kind of thing. But then with the flip side of it is also kind of, I'd say it is enough to meet that kind of 15 mark.
Yeah.
Okay.
So back to this. I recommended a budget of 1,000, and I was going to put 20% for you, which would.
So Jim,
$200 or about
Jim,
or how many hours is that enough, or is that too much?
Jim.
Yeah.
Rather than taking the valuation model and putting it at the end, maybe it would be good to just put it at the beginning and then make whatever adjustments later that, why don't you start by asking how many hours people put into it, and then you get some notion of, what they're putting in. And
well, I don't have to ask him how many hours he put in. It was there. No, he put in probably 15 hours. So,
Adi, is that a reasonable estimate?
Yeah, it's very reasonable. I just worked it out to about 14.
Okay, so let's call it 15 since Jim thinks you put in an extra hour. Gary, how many hours do you think you put into this?
On this one, probably about, say 5.
So Jim, if you add up 15 plus 5 plus how many, I don't know how many hours you worked on it. My guess is that you worked on it a lot more than 15 hours.
Yeah, probably, but like you said, I get paid out of a different mechanism.
Well, so you're covered under the different mechanism. Whatever you get paid here is deducted, as my understanding. But
Yeah,
you know,
the thing is, I'm
and
scattered across so many issues. You know, if I voted, you know, if I had everybody vote for me on everything I touched, that would be crazy. That's the purpose of the statement of work, is you don't have to micromanage the little things that.
okay. All right, so if we take 5 plus 15, and I don't know how many hours Donald worked, and then whether there are other contributors as well?
Yeah, we don't. You know, we can. What's 15 times 15?
225.
Okay, so we can give him 23% of the $1,000, and we're done with him.
And why do you think that $1,000 times 23% is a good valuation model? I mean, that's are you starting with the statement?
You know, I was assuming that was a sufficient budget. I could be wrong. We could end up.
So if it, I mean, I would take the approach, I would just make it really simple. I would say, you know, Adi contributed 15 hours, Gary contributed 5, Donald contributed 5, whatever number.
I sort of take issue with that.
Yeah.
Gary's done a lot of work.
Okay.
On the self-sovereign stack, you know, using Glitch with his bots. Now,
all right. So yeah, that brings experience, and that, yeah, I that makes sense.
And he shared with us to some extent on that. I don't know if there's a separate issue, but I think at least some of that effort that he put into the bots was shared with the group, and part contributes to the self-sovereign architecture that we're trying to build. What do you think?
Gary, does that sound reasonable to you?
Reasonable to me, yes.
I mean, so the total might have been 15 hours instead of 5 or something like that, or?
Yeah.
So if you take Adi at 15 and Gary at 15 and Donald at 5 and kind of multiply them all by $15 an hour, or if you think that being a beginner in a programming environment is different than being a beginner in some other environment?
Yeah, Donald's not a beginner.
No.
Donald's coaching us.
Well, maybe you can get a statement from Donald as to what he thinks a reasonable hourly thing is. My guess, he's going to come back with something like 5 or 10 and say, you know, if he were compensated for 5 or 10 hours at $15 an hour, he'd be good with that. And then if the value, instead of having a budget, or
if we don't pay our coaches well, we're not going to get coaches. I mean, you know, we're looking for people that know well. You know, I mean, his expertise is, you know, largely CSS, but he also has a lot more experience with Node and other things than we do. So,
okay,
you know, he's very.
So maybe your valuation model should have, you know, like beginners,
well, we started
lead, guides, whatever, and they might have different hourly rates, and then you multiply them and add them up, and then at the end you have a recommended budget.
Well, when we started this program, way back when, the scenario, we paid guides $60 an hour, and we paid students $10 an hour. And that was not really sufficient to attract a reasonable number of guides or students. Although, you know, when we had guides, we had very valuable sessions.
So if you're trying to attract guides with more experience or whatever, then you should probably set the numbers higher and use that in the proposal as a valuation model. And I mean, I think that's fine. I'm not sure what you or Donald feel like an appropriate hourly rate is for the type of work that he did, for the type of experience that he brings to this. But whatever it is, I think if we start with the notion of evaluation model, it's hourly, it's 2 people at this many hours at this rate, and this person was guiding at this rate, whatever, and then you come out with some numbers and you add them up, and then you have a budget request or a suggested budget, and that, I think, will make it a lot easier for people to vote on, and they'll feel like
the problem is that you can't leave it to the last minute. Nobody knows what they are going to do to the last minute. So when you budget it, you make the budget sufficient, okay, and then you only pay out that part of the budget that it was actually spent.
Okay, so let's just digress a little bit here. There's been a lot of suggestion within the board that projects be pre-budgeted. And I think what you're saying is that if you want to have a guaranteed budget and you want to have an allocation of funds for a particular thing, then you would do that. And, you know, the model that you're talking about would be putting the budget first and then the activity, and then maybe having some rationalization session. But even if, for me, even if I started with a budget of 1,000 or 19,500 or whatever, and then at the end I found out that what I really want from this is 6,200, I don't think that the initial estimate would be all that relevant.
Yeah, well, you know, you're trying to you know, nothing is finalized here until
Sure.
after the 9th. There's plenty of time to tweak this.
Okay.
And then, but it is the 29th. How many days are in this month?
31, I think. Yeah, 31.
So, we really can't assign any rewards yet because for this month, because we still have 2 noob meetings on Thursday, and we won't know how many.
So I'm a little bit unclear as to when the opening and closing of the period is.
It's a calendar month is what we're budgeting, and by the 9th of the month, it's finalized.
By the 9th of the month for this particular issue, because that's what you said.
No, for everything is frozen on the 9th. All the May budgets are frozen on the 9th.
Okay.
All the rewards.
So when do you have to apply for the May budget or to vote on it in order to be considered on the 9th?
By the 9th, I guess. I mean.
So that kind of creates a problem in that some projects in the past have had situations where the budget is proposed on the 8th and voted on the 9th and paid on the 9th, or, you know, voted on the 7th and paid, finalized on the 8th and paid on the 9th. And that makes a lot of people feel uncomfortable because they don't feel that there was sufficient time to vote the budget.
Right.
And we don't have a policy on that right now, but I'm pretty sure that that's going to be a requirement
Right.
from
Yeah.
the membership on, having a sufficient time to review work before voting on it.
Right. And, I mean, if budget doesn't get through, in principle, it's supposed to go to the next month.
Well, so to me, it would be.
What I try to do is I try
Yeah.
to get budgeted by the end of the month with maybe a budget that's not completely final, but the way that it works is that the masters and the journeyman votes are going to basically trump our votes on the budget.
So now we're discussing how the system can be gamed by masters and journeymen and people doing the work.
Well, I wasn't describing that, but certainly the system can be gamed. Okay, so
So just a second, there's an issue about closing issues and so forth and so on. If we forget about that issue for 1 second and just think about work that was done in May that's going to be frozen on June 9th, would it be reasonable to think that by the end of May, we can put a May actual budget and then leave the issue open or whatever so that additional work can be done if there's additional work necessary for the next month or whatever?
yeah, I mean, to me, it's very simple. We had a budget in April of $2,166, of which we spent $325. So in essence, the remainder of that budget is still available, or it's not still available.
Okay, so Jim, I've got this big quibble with you, and I'm going to say it once more, which is that Ian is pushing for a system in which budgets are pre-authorized, and I'm not sure that that will work well within our system. What I personally believe more in is saying, here's an estimate. If anybody thinks this is stupid, they should speak up now while we're estimating it. But we're going to tell you the number of hours that we worked before the vote. And then at the vote, and we're going to tell you evaluation model, which in this particular case is hourly. And at the vote, figure you guys, other members should figure it out.
Well, I think it's a little bit against the spirit of the bounty system, what you're saying, and I understand.
Why?
I understand what you're saying. Not sure.
Why is it against the spirit?
Well, the idea is that a group of guides would make their own decisions about how to do things.
Okay.
That having a lot of rules, okay, can be guidelines is good.
Okay.
But ultimately, it's up to the things. And you look at the way the negotiation goes. Aviation Hacker put in 1,500. Okay, Barkov put in 3,000. I put in 2,000 for March. Okay, and so we ended up with the budget. Now we probably you know, and the and 233 $325 went to Adi. Okay, that's all we spent.
Okay, so now I'm a member of the cooperative, or Adi's a member of the cooperative, Gary's a member of the cooperative, and they see an issue that they're not familiar with, where some guys in Nigeria put in a budget of 6,000 and 3,000 and 5,000 and produced 31 lines of code, and they had that voted, and then, you know, some of the members thought that was unfair and not in a cooperative spirit and not a good way of sharing resources. There was no principle involved. There was no indication of why somebody wrote 5,000 and somebody wrote 1,000 and somebody else wrote 0 and somebody wrote 300.
That was before they had any label review process. So, you know, that's water under the bridge. It's ancient history.
Okay.
So now we have a label review system.
Okay, so let's not go back maybe to this March vote where Aviation Hacker put in whatever and you put in whatever and whoever else put in whatever. Maybe that's not a good direction to go in, the backwards direction.
Well,
So,
in the forward direction, you know, how much work on this stack can we get done in a month? You know, how much, you know, that's what, you know, that's the way we budget things. Okay, we're not breaking it up now. We're saying, you know, how much do we hope to accomplish this month? $1,000 worth of value. Now,
all right.
in any of the companies I work for, producing something like this would have cost a lot more than $1,000.
So that could be a valuation model. You could say that in a company producing this would cost $30,000. I mean, I'm guessing that's what it would cost in a U.S. company like a Silicon Valley company,
Right.
Whatever.
Right, but in a research environment, it would cost less.
I don't know. You know, there's Rolang research, and I'm not convinced that it would cost less. It might cost double. I don't know. What I'm saying is that, how about this? I am not even a guide in this project. You're the guide, Jim. Why don't you discuss with the members or the people that you work with what you think is a reasonable valuation model, and write it as a valuation model and not like some random, like this person said the word 5,000 and this person said the word 1,000, because that's the source.
It's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of subjective influence here, and
Sure.
You know, the help that Ani and Gary have given me has been really valuable to me. Okay.
Okay.
And therefore to the whole effort, to the project.
Okay.
So
Okay.
you know,
So,
that subjective nature you take away as soon as you start giving rules like this. But yes,
Jim, I'm not. I'm going to back up here. I'm not giving any rules. I'm suggesting that the cooperative needs to form norms so
Right.
that people can agree on stuff. So that when Jim says subjectively this, or when Jim says this would cost more in a corporate environment, or when somebody says whatever, that we have some kind of tradition. So I'm going to get out of this meeting. Jim, can we go back? I'm going to leave in another minute and a half.
Right. I'm just saying.
Jim, you're the lead and the guide in this effort. Why don't you guys come up with a valuation model that includes a sufficient number of words, so that when Ian or DC Casey or me or any random new member comes to vote on this issue, they'll be able to read it clearly and say, yeah, that sounds great. Or what, $50 an hour, or, you know, whatever they say.
Right.
But at least that we have some kind of basis for discussion, and we're building a culture within the cooperative so that people have some idea of how to value each other's work and contributions.
Right. And, you know, and that one little fix to the reward system here, where when you give a reward vote, okay, and if you could give a reason for the reward, that would help tremendously.
Okay, Jim, I've been working on that. I followed the links that you've suggested, and I do think that we're going to come up with a discussion system that's going to support this kind of stuff. But for right now, the discussion system that I'd suggest is take that bit in the top of the issue where it says budget and turn it into valuation model plus team. So who are the contributors? What's the valuation model? What are the special things? You know, maybe it's worth a $1,000 or a $10,000 bonus because it was the right piece of work at the right time. I don't know. I mean, you know, you can imagine that when people go to VCs, they have all kinds of valuation models, and there, you know, any of that is reasonable. Just think about the corporate culture or the cooperative culture that we're trying to establish so that we can be fair across all the teams contributing different things. Okay, I'm going to leave it to you guys. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Alan.
Cool.
Yeah.
See
See you
ya.
later.
Bye.
Add to the
Nice to meet you.
document, you know, your ideas.
Sorry, Jim, what?
Add to the norms document your ideas on what the on what
You know what, Jim, I have a bunch of other things that I'm late doing right now. If
Yeah.
you or Gary or Audie or anybody thinks that this makes sense, put in your own words and do it in your actions in this particular thing. Change that budget to a valuation model or something, a discussion about why this should be valued at anything, whatever it is. All right, guys, see you later. Bye.
Sweet. See ya.
Jim,
So,
I need
I don't
to.
I don't know exactly what to say. I mean, the thing is, you know, we can certainly comment on the issue to justify the valuation, but you know, if nobody questions it, I don't think we have to do that. Okay, so what I would suggest is that we budget this for before the end of the month, and I put in 1,000. Put in whatever you think. You know, this is how we get a collective intelligence. Everybody puts in what they think, and the average of that is sort of a collective intelligence. And the label reviewers are going to come in and put in their estimates. It doesn't really make sense to give the reward votes at this time, but I can't delete it. But until we have a good idea what the final budget is, we really can't put in the rewards. And then there's the issue of my time not being covered under here.
So should your time be covered in there as well, or are we not covering your time?
It's an interesting problem, okay? And the one, you know, it's like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. I mean,
That's kind of what I thought.
What happens if somebody else hosts the meeting? you know, you have to sort of budget for the total cost.
Hmm.
Um, the
Mhm.
So I don't know. Just put in what you think for the budget, and we'll figure it out at the end when we do the rewards.
Well, I need to take off. It's been an interesting discussion, and we'll. When's the next? Oh, I guess the next interesting meeting is tomorrow's RAM meeting. Is it the RAM meeting or the members meeting where we're going to, or where you're going to review this, Jim? Is it HJ's meeting or
No, he wants to put it in the. He wants to put it in the community debrief.
with Greg? Okay. Do you need our help for that? I don't think you do.
Nope, but set a budget here. There's the link. But you have to be logged in. You log in from our page and go to development. Well, you can select the issue or just put in the issue number. No, you can't put in the issue number. Be nice to.
So we go rewards, reward votes, budget.
Yeah, I think we want to put a couple of buttons on there. View, issue number, and vote. There should be a vote button.
Somebody share your screen so I can see what's going on, because I've never done this.
Sure you have. You did it last time. See your vote here, entropy.
Okay.
Oh, what's this? Reward votes, budget votes. No, you never did budget vote this.
Okay, I'm starting to see now. All right. Budget votes.
Yeah. Yeah. In terms of finding the issue, you can't search for issue number still. So just put in GraphQL and it pops up.
Or you just click here, vote.
It's even easier. What?
Click on the vote there, and I'm not seeing how to enter my vote.
Okay, well, are you logged in? Do you have this new budget vote button here?
Oh, no, I guess I'm not logged in, like you said. Okay, sorry.
So if you go back here and you hit login, then you can reload the page.
Login.
You can just log in and then kill the tab,
Okay.
and then reload this page, and you should have a new budget vote button.
Got it. New budget vote. No.
I just like to have these budgeted before the end of the month. You know, like you said, you want to give people time to review it.
Hmm.
And then the and then there's a question of education, peer learning work groups.
Peer learning work group. Okay, that's what number?
I don't think we have any budget or anything for that. I think that's okay. You know, well, bill under the project we're working on.
Okay.
I'm just looking around. So, the answer is you don't integrate robot into rewards. Robot is a user-driven interface. Not enslaved to the backend. Okay. So, uh, so I'm just updating the issue here. Um, oops. What? Didn't copy. Uh, oops. I should have used the word self-sovereign here.
Yeah, front ends. Cool.
comment history is now public. Got it. Thank you.
You know, I thought that was supposed to send a notification, and I didn't see a notification when you entered that comment.
Well, I think there's a little delay before it sends the email.
Oh, that's right. That's right. It's probably only running. It's probably running that only every 15 minutes or so.
Yeah, and then are you also subscribed or assigned? Because if you're not on that issue, you won't get the notification.
Yeah, I'm getting all the emails.
Because I know I'm an assignee on 609, but
Well, we are logging all the notifications to a channel on Mattermost, and that's where I was looking for it. And I think if since we're going through Zapier, it's every 15 minutes or something like that.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty nice, you know, in the event log. I can look at my mentions, and that's because then I can, you know, I guess you can do the same thing in GitHub, but it's nice to have it on Mattermost. And you get to, you know, see, although I haven't been watching on Mattermost.
Yeah, I like that because you can see everything that's going on rather than just the things you're subscribed to.
Right.
mm,
So, did we budget that issue?
I did.
673 or 609?
The link's in the chat.
Oh, that one there. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I budgeted that.
Okay.
Oh, no.
I did.
Oh, that's rewards. My bad. Yeah, I did. Yeah.
For this month, you did?
Yeah, for this month.
Okay. Anything else we need to handle? It's going on 2 hours here.
What are we going to do next time? On Thursday? When will the next one be? On Thursday?
Thursday, we have one scheduled at 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock.
Okay. And what do we want to be thinking?
Audie will be at the 4 o'clock. He won't be at the 2 o'clock.
Yeah. Time zone difference.
Okay.
Okay. The priority, I think that, you know, that we have, Gary, is the graph IQL.
Okay. We want to somehow pull graphical out and let it be independent of GitHub so that we can use it on any API that we want to look at. Right?
So, you know, basically what we're going to add is a we add another section in here.
Share your screen.
Oh. Okay, which is get/graph IQL, and put the code for that. And, you know, have a separate app get for /graph IQL. So we have another page that does that.
Hmm.
And, you know, we create some kind of page menu that goes on. So from here, you can click on GraphQL and go to that page, and then we'll have a thing to go back to the label interface. And we can have as many pages as we want in here that do different things.
Okay. Well, this is a good jumping off point for me. It's 5 o'clock here.
Yep.
Yeah.
See you later, Jim and Adi.
Oh, see you, Gary.
Thanks a lot.
Sweet. Oh, well.